I can tell you one thing for nothing. Thailand was the worst thing to ever happen to me, and that's including the indignity I went through when my old wife decided to take off with all my stuff. Thailand let me down, and maybe my anger shouldn't be directed at the country itself, but the person who let me down, who just so happened to be Thai. Maybe it's a bit of both. I just didn't know that people from such humble origins could consider themselves to be anything more than grateful to have someone elevate them to a better financial and social standing. I didn't go to Thailand and plan to lose a load of money. I don't think anybody goes to Thailand and plans to lose a load of money. But unfortunately, it just seems to happen to many people, because I don't know if it's just me, but I came to a conclusion when I went to Thailand, and I had the country all wrong. I thought that the country looks at people like me as a valuable source of revenue. No, I'm not saying that by myself I'm making a difference to the Thailand economy, but me and the tens of thousands of other people just like me who go to Thailand, it all adds up to an amount that should give us some form of say in how things are done in the country of Thailand that we love so much. I got everything so wrong. I hated the fact that I had to work all my life, and then things didn't go to plan anyway, or the way I expected them to go, and that was why I was in Thailand in the first place. I think the first thing that I got wrong was just feeling like Thailand was something that it wasn't. That's why I had Thailand all wrong. I think maybe the whole of Asia all wrong, and most definitely I had the girls in Thailand all wrong. Maybe, and this is probably not going to be very popular, maybe I had a very old school type of mind where the West, doesn't own the world anymore, but we gave a lot to the world, so perhaps we should be respected for how things should be done. I don't want to get too deep into my political beliefs because that's not going to help me anyway. Not going to help anyone to make sure they don't do or think how I did and thought. That's the reason I want to share this story. Just to say, make sure you don't do what I did. You can feel like you care about someone and perhaps you don't love them, in the same way that you might love your old wife, for example. You might not expect actual love back from them, but you want respect. You don't actually think you're getting this traditional relationship, but you want something in between where equal value is, shared. People don't have to value themselves as an equal, etc., but I don't know what I'm trying to say. But I thought Thailand was one thing, but Thailand happened to be something altogether very different to what I thought it was. You probably picked up already that I was divorced previously, and because of that, I lost many years of my life. I've heard guys talking about it in a way like how much money they lost. But to me, it wasn't the money. It was the years of my life that money represented. That's what I lost, and I couldn't get those back again as much as I wanted to. I was divorced at 58, 2 years away before we planned to retire, and she decided that she wanted to find herself, whatever that was supposed to mean. I think she still had some kind of very extremely grand idea that some wealthy guy was going to come along and give her the life that she thought that she deserved. What she didn't really understand, which is what I think was important, was that I didn't have the life I thought I was going to have either, because most of what I worked for went to try to make her happy. Imagine if I saved what I made and kept it for myself. Imagine the life I could have lived if I'd done that, but no. I took her away on holiday as many times as I could to nice places. I went because I wanted her to be happy, but I didn't feel appreciated. I bought her nice things when she wanted them. I tried to make sure she lived in a nice house and drove a car that she was proud of. But what did I get for that? Nothing. I lost the house that I bought. I lost the car that was hers, and I think I was left with about £300,000, and that was it. Somehow, she walked away with about £450,000, and I still don't understand how that was allowed to happen. That's why I was, or still am, really angry because of just how shockingly things turned out for me. The thing that was clear to me was that I didn't want to be at home anymore. The thought of staying there filled me with dread. The thought of going back to work again and getting back on the housing ladder, paying off another mortgage if I could have got one at my age, I just didn't want to go through all that again because by the time I might have saved any more money, I'd have been too old to enjoy it anyway. And that was why I decided that I would go to Thailand, because I actually had a friend there. He did things right. He stayed single his whole life, retired at 40. But my friend went there and he was living there in Thailand. He'd already been there for 5 years, talked all the time about how fantastic it was, and he was living in the city of Pattaya. Now I had an excuse and reason to go. And this was a few years ago now, if my memory serves me, about 2017. And that's then. Because of everything, I just thought I'm going. Let's see what it's like. Meet up with my friend, get some pointers from him, and if things are good, I'll just stay. Start a new life away from everything that went so wrong at home. I moved to Thailand then, completely sight unseen. My friend had told me that because I was over 50, I should be able to get a visa that would let me stay in the country just by doing a renewal every year, so that sounded easy enough. He also told me how much things cost and how much I could expect to spend, and it almost didn't seem real when he was describing the prices of certain things, because it sounded like that was way too cheap. He was definitely a guy who loved the bars. He always talked about them. His latest conquest, as he used to say, and the way he described it was that a girl in a bar is not the same as a girl not in a bar because she's there. That means that it's easier and it's more in line with how things should be if you want something that's casual and fun at the same time. Because he stayed single all his life, he was able to just do what he wanted all the time. And when I did get to Thailand and met my friend in Pattaya where he lived, I looked around and I thought to myself, why did I waste the best years of my life trying to look after someone who didn't appreciate the fact that I looked after them? Why did I work all those years? Why did I sacrifice all those years, in essence, for nothing in return? There were guys who were my age when I got married in Thailand, and they were single. Didn't earn a lot of money, some of them, but some of them did. But they didn't need a lot of money. It just seemed like that's the life that you should go for if you're in a position to be able to do it. Thailand wasn't anything like I thought it would be, nothing like any of the other countries I've ever been to, and I have been to a few. Most of the ones selected by my ex-wife who had decided where to go and how much we spent on the fanciest hotels. I just went along with it to make her happy, and I've already talked about that enough. Thailand was something altogether different. And the first day when I'm there and my friend sees me, he's got this really stunning girl, probably in her early 20s, sat next to him. I knew he was going to pull something, just to sort of show me that this is what I've been missing out on all along. He was the same age as me, but like I said, retired when he was 40 and found himself in Thailand. He did everything right by not wasting his life for somebody else. He stands up and we shake hands and he introduces me to this girl, and apparently this was serious, he said. Not serious like he's ever going to get married or anything, but serious because he's been with her for over a week, he said, and she just seemed to be indifferent to everything. Oblivious to the conversation we were having, and it seemed so effortless, like she was just there for as and when he needed her, and in return, she doesn't really need to do anything else. My friend bigged up the idea of Thailand and what it meant to be in Thailand and what it meant to be with a girl in Thailand. I think just seeing him there, completely in his element, no strings attached, effortless, and he appeared to be in charge of everything. That's how he said it. Okay, we're going now to this place for a drink, and she obediently stands up and goes with us. Okay, now it's time to go for something to eat, so we go to a steakhouse close by, not too far away from Soy Lenki. And again, she obediently agrees to go everywhere that he wants to go, and he was calling the shots, and she seemed to appreciate the fact that he was calling the shots. At least that's how he sold it to me, and that's how I felt by actually witnessing it. That first night, though, it was an introduction like no other. I immediately understood that I had made the right decision to move to Thailand, and having my friend there only helped me to make the situation even easier. Knowing that I would never, ever have to concern myself about anybody else ever again, apart from me, that was something that was akin to a light bulb moment, because it took me up until this age to actually understand that life could be for me if I wanted it to be. I think I was just too drawn into the idea that the girls that were working there were doing so, of course, to make some money and help support their families, but also I thought it was more of a situation that they looked up to people from places that many of the tourists such as me came from. I mean, I was an expat now, I wasn't even a tourist, straight into being an expat, and that was quite amazing. But I think this difference between me and my friend was quite stark the more I think about it. Because whereas he was single all his life and was okay to be in many, many casual relationships, I always felt like one relationship was the answer to true happiness. The way he was always juggling around these different girls, he relished it. But for me, while I had a number of girlfriends over the first month of being there, and it was something like nothing I'd ever thought even possible before, I was more keen on the idea of just having one person to be with who would be not like my old wife was, and who wouldn't be demeaning towards me, or want excessive things from me, or divorce me and take all my things. I thought someone who would be that type of person that I wanted. It was just someone who did everything that I wanted them to do, in return for not having to work themselves. If I was a musician, and I could change myself into a 24-year-old Thai girl, with the same mind that I have now, knowing how hard I worked throughout all my life, and not getting anything for it, I would have gladly been at someone's every beck and call in return for not having to work and receiving an allowance. Working is not like having to work. If you work, you have money, you're in control. If you're not working and you don't have money, you're not in control. And I would have happily been not in control in return for never having to work. I thought that's what the girls in Thailand like, and that's what they wanted. Someone who could take charge of things. Someone who could lead them so they don't have to spend that time thinking about where their next money's coming from. I don't know if it was because this is exactly how I wanted things to be in Thailand, based on how bad my old marriage was. I don't know if this is something that I dreamed of happening, and I kind of like, this is what I thought was happening. This is what I expected to happen, and there was no indication that anything else other than this was happening. I hadn't really heard any of the horror stories before because aside from my friend going to Thailand, I didn't know anything else about it. What he said was what happened, and because of that, I didn't research and listen to any other opinions from any other people. I just thought that this was a place where if you met someone, that someone would be your wife or partner if you didn't want to get married, girlfriend, and you might have to give them an allowance. But in return for that, their only thoughts and opinions are to please because that's what they're doing in return for their allowance. Just as the same when I went to work and I didn't like it. I still had to do the work. I didn't want to do any of it, though if I didn't like it and said I didn't like it, I'd get fired. That would be it. So it really felt like when I got to Thailand that my wildest dreams had come true. I was elevating all these opinions that I was having to the point where these weren't opinions, these were solid, based in reality facts that I had garnered by being in Thailand. So suppose I was set up from the start to actually come crashing down because I thought Thailand was something so much different than it actually was. I got it all wrong, and I wouldn't go as far as saying that I blame myself there because I still have to reference myself. If it was me and the roles were reversed, I'd gladly give up my thoughts and opinions in exchange for not having to work in my 20s or 30s. I found a really great place to live as well. That was good. I'd never lived in a condo-style place before. The closest I'd come to a condo was a hotel room when I was on holiday in the past, and it took a bit of getting used to, getting in the elevator all the way up to the 25th floor, and also living in such a small place. It had everything I needed inside. Didn't really need to do any cooking because of how affordable things were to just go out and eat. So the cooker, no oven, the hob thing, it went completely unused for most of the time when I was there by myself. The bedroom was very small, and you could barely walk around the bed, but the view out of the window definitely made up for how cramped it was, and the thought of everything below me that I could see being with me, it was within my grasp. It really excited me to feel like I found somewhere where I finally belonged, where there was no chance anyone was going to do anything bad to me, because I thought that that wasn't even the remotest of possibilities. During my first 3 months there, I probably met up with my friend once a week. Most of the time he had a new girl with him, and he was always really proud of himself because he never got attached. He never fell in love. He never cared about people. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't respect them or take care of them properly or treat them very well. Just saying that he didn't care if his current girl just walked up and left him. Which happened one time when we were having something to eat in a restaurant along Soi Bukkao. He always gave his girlfriends an allowance when they were with him, and this girl that he was with, think for 5 days, he said, something along those lines, asked for something above what he should normally give, asking if she could have something for her family. I can remember the conversation, and I looked at my friend like he knows exactly how to handle himself. She said to him, I hope okay, but my mama problem. Baby, you need go hospital, you money, pay me money for hospital, mama me. I can remember him just looking at her and saying, absolutely not. Then she said, please, pretty please, and she even smiled a bit and hugged him, expecting him to give her extra money. He just looked at her and just said, he took his hand and shooed her away, shoo, like go away. And she looked at him and was shocked, asked again and no again, and off she went. He looked at me and smiled and said, that's exactly what you do in a situation like that. And I guess perhaps that just wasn't who I was. That wasn't in my character or nature, and what I would have done, and what I would have expected to have happened, I probably would have said yes. There would have been lots of things to go along with it that I wouldn't have directly talked about, but I would have expected. Maybe I would have thought about taking out a little bit of her allowance across a certain amount of months to get the money back, or something along those lines. I thought getting something back in return for doing that would have been obvious, and I guess I just didn't know what I was doing or talking about. What I'm saying is, it's like all I would want in return is someone who would understand that by getting support from me, you're not allowed to value your own feelings and opinions because you're getting money. I don't know, but I just looked at him with admiration because I know I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have been too soft and I would have struggled to behave like that. Funniest thing, he gets on his phone calling in one of his other girlfriends and she appears about half an hour later, and then we just sat there with us as if nothing's happened. I really looked up to my friend. He made a lot of money in his life up until he was 40 when he retired, and today he's still in Thailand, his best life. And the saddest thing of all is he tried to warn me. He tried to tell me what not to do, but I didn't listen to him or heed his warnings. Although he seemed to know exactly what he was doing and what he was talking about, I had my own opinions of what Thailand was, and I never thought that somebody that I gave so much to would, still value their own feelings and thoughts about what they want to do, because it didn't make sense to me why they would do that. It still doesn't make sense to me why they would do that. It was after I'd been with my friend having that late afternoon meal, 3 months into being in Thailand, and then he went off with his girlfriend to do whatever it is they were doing, and I took a walk down to Beach Road. I had a few drinks in one of the bars along there, and then I took a long walk on the beach, not on the beach, but on the pavement next to it, to a little restaurant I liked to go on Central Pattaya Road. I enjoyed that, and then it was time to do like always. Go to the bars, have some drinks, and see where the night takes me. And it was when I made my way to Soi 8 and one of the bars along there where I actually met a girl that I wanted to spend some time with, so we leave the bar together after having a drink. I've done this before, maybe 15 times up until now, but I never really felt any feeling towards any of the girls before as of yet. For some reason, she was a lot different. It felt different in the sense that I liked her in more ways than one, and usually I just liked the girls in one way. So I thought I was due a bit of a break away from Pattaya, and one of the things my friend used to tell me was that when he met a girl he liked, occasionally he'd go with her to a resort for a week and do things that way. I thought about that then and sounded like a great idea, so I wondered if she'd be interested. She said she would, we agreed that, then we got a taxi up to Bangkok and flew down to Phuket, to a resort I booked. It was so easy, so effortless, and everything I wanted it to be. During that whole week in Phuket, she behaved exactly like I thought a girl like that was meant to behave. Not once did she nag, not once did she complain, not once did she not like something that I did, not once did she do anything that would indicate that she valued her own feelings and opinions, because she was being supported financially for being there with me. One thing I thought about was that if this continued, for example, for a year or 2 years or even longer, maybe we got married, why would she change in that dynamic? This is the dynamic that I liked. I didn't want to be with anybody who behaved any other way than this girl was behaving with me when I took her to Phuket. I would wake up in the morning, everything was up to me in terms of the hotel situation, everything was up to me where we went to eat, everything was up to me what we did that day. Would we swim in the pool or would we go to the beach? It was up to me where we went to eat in the evening, and it was up to me what happened in the hotel that evening. Every single thing was up to me, and she went along with it, smiling and happy and gracious. I thought I knew what this was, and I know what you're going to say. You were helping her monetarily in this sense. Yes, so if I'm helping, for example, my wife in the same sense for 5 years, perhaps she doesn't love me. I don't need to have that love, I just need the respect in return. So why is it that the more you stay with someone, the more you give to someone, the nicer you do to someone, the better you make their life, yet from the moment of meeting them until when things inevitably go wrong, everything that they do gets worse? That's one of the biggest things that I can't really get my head around. It doesn't make any sense to me because I'm not saying that I fell in love with her so much and I thought she loved me so much, and she didn't love me like I thought she did. I'm not saying anything of the sort. I'm saying that why is it that on that first week in Phuket, she was exactly the sort of person that I could see myself spending the rest of my life with. She was everything that I wanted. No love, never mind. Affection, of course, that's important. Respect, very important. But it seemed only logical, maybe my mind is too logical, but if this is what I want here and now, and what you want is financial support, so when my financial support increases and gets more and more and more, your attitude gets worse and worse and worse. That's basically what I'm saying happened, and it didn't make sense. But I didn't know her attitude was going to get worse and worse. Because if I did, I would have listened to my friend when I told him, after she'd stayed with me for another 3 months at my place in Pattaya, that I was getting married to her. I'd have listened to him when he said, don't be an idiot. If you marry her, things are going to end up extremely bad for you. You're an idiot, don't do it. He swore at me, told me not to do it. But I ignored him thinking I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. I just thought what I had with her in Phuket was what I would have with her forever. Why wouldn't I think that? Because I continued to provide more and more and do nicer and nicer. Why wasn't she willing to do the same? Even though my friend gave me all that advice, he still went up to my girlfriend's village with us when I got married because although he'd been in Thailand for such a long time, he'd never been to a village in Isan before. He took one of his girlfriends with him, and it happened that the same city that she was from was the one that my girlfriend was from. And she actually tried to ask him, can we go and have a look there? Maybe we can get married. And he just sort of looked at her and said, no chance. Laughing at the same time, but yeah, he didn't want to do that and he knew what he was doing. My friend was a sight though, and I'm sorry to keep talking about my friend so much, but he was looking at everything going on like, damn it man, you're insane to be going through with something like this. He's being respectful to everyone and he's not saying anything wrong, but he'd heard people who had been married and things hadn't gone well. I'm so lost in my version of what's happening that perhaps I'm just blind to what's actually going on. The whole 3 months that I stayed with her after we returned from Phuket, she was exactly like she was in Phuket. I was giving her 20,000 baht a month as an allowance. And I wasn't blind to the situation. I didn't think that she was madly in love with me, a guy nearly 60 and she was 24. I wasn't thinking that this was love like that. I was just thinking that this was a relationship of mutual respect, affection and understanding. As long as she respected me and what I was doing, that was good enough. And as long as, like I said, she didn't start bringing her ideas and opinions to the table, the more comfortable she got, then everything would have been okay. She hadn't asked for anything during those whole 3 months. She was getting her allowance and that was it. Not once did she go out to see friends. Not once did she ask for money for an emergency. Not once did she appear to be greedy and vindictive and ruthless and conniving. She didn't seem like she was that sort of person. It seemed like it was going to be a perfect life for me moving forwards. Just like I was paying 15,000 baht a month in rent for my condo. About 3,000 baht a month for the electric bill. 15,000 baht a month for my insurance. 20,000 baht a month for my wife, 10,000 for food and grocery bills, and money extra on top of that for entertainment and going out. Why is it that the expense for my wife should be considered any different than the expense for everything else that I needed in my life? I considered that I wanted a partner like this, not that I wanted to mistreat her or disrespect her. I gave her a huge amount of respect by agreeing to have an actual village ceremony. I agreed to pay a small token amount of sinsot, and I mean very small, 20,000 baht. If I'm being really honest, I did feel like I loved her, but it wasn't the normal sort of love. Not like I loved my old wife when I met her, who decided to ruin everything. It wasn't that puppy love that you feel when you're in your younger days. It was just a love of stability that I thought I had by being in this relationship with her. The love of the things she did when we were together. The love of her complete lack of desire to do anything other than please, and that's what I was getting into in this marriage. To have a continuation of this throughout the rest of our time together, which I hoped would see me to the end of my life. One thing that I always considered in this sense was that my wife was a direct extension of myself. If I had to do something in Thailand and I didn't have to do much that required my wife having to do it because I wasn't Thai, I never considered I was doing it for her or in her name. I considered that I was doing it for myself and she was the vehicle in order to make this a possibility. I never considered that that vehicle could somehow up and have its own opinions and thoughts about things when it's going and getting too comfortable. Just like the time around this time when I bought a car. Again, I'm eating through my money and I'm spending a bit too much, but I'm quite confident that things will last because I do have my pension coming in a number of years' time anyway, and that could be the amount of money I would live on. But when I bought that car, and I did buy it in my own name because I knew I could do that, but the moment I bought it and drove it off the lot and my wife was in the passenger seat, putting the first kilometers on it, now that car decreased in value massively as soon as it was purchased and used for the same time. Yet that car wouldn't all of a sudden feel like it was worth more money than it was when it was sitting brand new in the showroom because it wouldn't think like that. So I think I was so busy focusing on the fact that I thought my wife was, I'm not saying my property, I'm not trying to say that I thought she was my property because that's not accurate at all. But I just thought that she was a direct extension of myself. And because I was helping her with a monthly allowance, that was, for her to do what she wanted to use it for. Therefore, as time went on with her, and when I agreed after we'd been married for 2 months to give her a few baht extra a month, 22,000 now instead of 20, I did so on the understanding that this was a 10% increase. Yet, her actions didn't increase by 10% to warrant this increase in her allowance. But what happened around this time was she started asking for more things. Little things to start with. An amount of money that you wouldn't notice missing out of your bank account. And while I'm not necessarily picking up on the fact that this is unacceptable, given the fact that I'm already giving her a little bit more, and it doesn't appear like her behaviour has improved by 10% to go along with it, what does seem to have happened is she seems more emboldened the longer we stay together. I didn't pick up on it because I couldn't compute in my own mind that this was a reality because I thought this was something so different than it was. The first thing that she asked for was a new phone when hers broke, so we went out. I spent, I think, about 20,000 baht to buy her a brand new phone. I saw that as an investment into a sweeter, nicer, kinder, and more affectionate, more loving wife. Again, I'm not thinking love in the sense that she loves me more now. I don't think she actually loved me like love in the true sense, but she's just had an increase of her allowance by nearly double to buy this phone. Surely, when we're going out to eat that evening and I order what was described as pasta and bolognese sauce, when it came and the bolognese tasted like it had had 20 spoons of sugar in it, and I kindly said to the waitress that I can't eat it because it's too sweet, please take it back, which he did. When I was still charged for that, and I got a bit angry and started shouting at them like, how are you charging me for this? Not understanding that, customer service and providing nice food isn't necessarily the priority at many restaurants in Thailand. The money is the priority for them. So you might send it back for not liking it, but tough luck, you've got to pay anyway. Most restaurants seem to do like that in Thailand. The very good ones, they don't, and that's something you will learn if you go there. The good ones would never do that. But the good ones you're paying, quite close to Western prices for them, so it kind of defeats the object, doesn't it? But because I was angry in that situation, which I had every right to be, this was the first time I was angry in a situation at a restaurant where the food was so bad I couldn't even eat it. It had never happened to me, and I'd been in Thailand for not quite a year yet, but over half. The fact that she didn't see that as a one-off incident and actually, put her arm around me and say, don't worry about it, thinking about her allowance and the fact that she's just got this brand new phone, maybe saying something to me to indicate that she's going to make me feel very happy later on. But no, instead of her doing that, which would have made the most sense to me, she starts sulking and starts shouting at me, saying, you no do that, Thailand not nice, lady working restaurant look me no good, I know like you do like this. And to add insult to injury, the whole time that she's doing this to me, she's holding the damn phone that I bought for her in her hand, chatting on it. It's absolute insanity as far as I was concerned. What happened to my wife in that moment? Because that was unacceptable. I couldn't believe she'd done that. I wasn't being unrealistic here. I'm not trying to paint a picture of I'm complaining at every single restaurant I go to, because I don't. That was the first time ever. Usually if it's not nice, I just won't eat it. But that was so awful, I thought they needed to know. What happened to the girl that I took to Phuket that was everything I wanted? That night we returned home and I went out for a few drinks, went to meet up with my friend and told him about it. He didn't say anything to me. When I said the same thing again, he just started talking about something else. Then I asked him again and said, why aren't you saying anything? I told you not to get married to somebody because it doesn't stay the same. I told you, you didn't listen to me, so it's useless saying anything. And then I suppose I thought, well, never mind, it's a one-off incident and she'll be okay soon, which she was. But the thing that made it worse was the following morning, when she's making some breakfast for us and I call her over and say, well, let's forget about yesterday. She was affectionate and, behaving like a wife who receives an allowance should behave. And I said, well, after we've had breakfast, I think we can maybe, relax for a few hours and then let's go out. Let's go and have some drinks and go for a meal in the evening. This wasn't uncommon. It's something that we always did together. But that day she just said, I no feeling go out. I no want go, you go yourself. What do you mean you don't want to go out? I want to stay room, I no want go. If I wasn't her husband, if I wasn't supporting her financially, if I wasn't providing her with a nicer place to live that she was living in before, if I wasn't providing her with a car to drive that she didn't have before, if I was just the guy that met her in a bar, that was no way she would have said, I don't want to do that. She would have done it anyway. So why am I giving more and getting less? And again, I'm thinking it's just a one-off incident, never mind. But what happened to my wife in the sense of the person that I met? It wasn't meant to be a traditional relationship. It was meant to be, you get your allowance in turn for doing what I want. What's difficult? My friend did warn me that it works like that when you just meet them. It works like that when you spend a few weeks with them. But the longer you spend with them, the more comfortable they get, and they get worse. They want more for less. And yes, I went out myself and had a few drinks, and actually had a good time by myself because I usually went with her. I wasn't thinking anything too wrong at that moment. It was just a situation that I was in. But when, a month goes by and she comes to me again saying that she's seen a really nice handbag that she wants. It's really expensive, it's 40,000 baht, can she have it? I'm not thinking that I'm giving her 40,000 baht to buy a handbag. I'm thinking I'm giving her something to the value of double her allowance, therefore she's obviously thinking that she wants to behave 3 times better than that. 3 times better than how she normally does, and that's what I wanted back. I didn't want to spell that out, I just thought it was obvious. I wanted her to go back to that girl that I spent that week with in Phuket, where she was just perfect in every way. And during that weekend, I gave her 10,000 when we were in Phuket, so that she could use that for what she wanted. And now, when I went to buy her that bag again, my mind is talking to myself saying, yes, things are going to become better for you after you've done this. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm just trying to get my wife back the way I want her to be. Did it work that way? It did for like 3 days, and then after having 3 great days with her, we're going out together, doing everything we used to do. I say this, we do that. Everything is how I want the relationship to be. But then, on day 4, when I already had plans that we'd talked about already, that we were going to meet my friend with his girlfriend, me and her, him and his girlfriend, we're going for a meal. When it came time to go and leave that evening, she just said, I not want go. I change mind, I no go. You go your friend. The thing was, though, I forced it. I said, no, it's planned, we have to do it. It's not acceptable, you have to go with me. So reluctantly she did, and she sulked all night. She goes up and goes to the bathroom with my friend's girlfriend, a new girlfriend that he met a few days ago. And he's just laughing at me, saying, "This one I've got, exactly like I want it to be. If it doesn't work, never mind, move on." Telling about how over time they get too complacent, too comfortable. And he's not laughing at me like he's laughing out loud, like ha ha ha. It's like, "Mate, I told you." And then he referenced her new phone and bad, like, "How much did that cost?" And they say something a bit crude about his girl and how much support he was giving her. And I'm like, me, I may have bitten off more than I can chew here because I'm not getting what I want. And while I haven't lost a lot of money yet, instead of perhaps throwing in the towel and trying to take a page out of my friend's book, I keep doubling down and thinking eventually she's going to come to her senses. Eventually she's going to return to normal. Eventually some form of equilibrium is going to form and things are going to be great for me again. I just kept hoping and holding out for things to go back to the way they were because that's all I wanted. That girl in Phuket. And after getting married, it sort of died down and she put in a lot less effort. And she continued to continuously put in less effort on a daily basis. And I thought perhaps we needed to take some time away and try to rekindle things. Not that I needed to rekindle anything, but she needed to. I spent about £10,000 on a resort for 2 weeks. She started doing the social media and she liked to post about things, so I thought if I took her to a place like that, she'd appreciate it more. And I'm trying to tell her, please, you have to understand. I need you to be the person I met at all times, but just for me. That's why I'm giving you these things and the allowance, etc. I need you to be like that. Please be like that. So we go to this resort and, well, I suppose we had a good time and I'm not angry or upset about things. It wasn't anything like that first time when we went to Phuket and I couldn't understand. I even said it to her, like, "Why can't you do like that?" And she said, "I'm your wife. I'm not going to do like that. I'm not going to walk around without clothes on in the resort. I'm not doing that. Who do you think I am?" And then I think to myself, you're the person that did that before, and I guess probably for other guys as well who were coming and going, but you're not prepared to do this for your husband. How convenient. And this time in the resort, we're going to nice restaurants and she's doing all the pictures and things and getting me to take pictures of her smiling really happily at the camera as if she's having the best time in the world. And then the camera goes off and she doesn't smile as much. I mean, she's still smiling a bit and being okay, but she's not exciting anymore. She's not putting in more effort. But why does she feel like she should have more things by putting in less effort? It doesn't make sense to me. Then we go back from the resort, then we go visit her family for Songkran. I'd never witnessed what the water throwing stuff was like before, and I was kind of looking forward to celebrating it in Pattaya for the first time because I'd heard it was crazy. But she wanted to visit the family, and I put her interest in front of mine, thinking in return she's going to be appreciative of that fact. We get there, it was just like it was the last time we visited, which happened to be the time when we got married. Very, very basic living. Nothing that any self-respecting Western person would ever put themselves through. But I was prepared to just stay in the room, which seemed to be a joint to the house, no air conditioning or anything like that. That day, when we arrived, it became clear that the motorcycle that her parents had completely seen its last days. It wasn't working properly. And she asked me nicely if I could buy a new one for them for about 60,000 baht, and I said yes, thinking that if anything, that was insurance to make sure her behaviour would continue in the right direction. Yet that evening, when we go to bed, she doesn't do anything with me. And it's like I just bought a motorcycle, who do you think you are? And then we had a huge argument and started shouting at each other. And she's saying, how can you make me look like that in front of my family? And then I said, well, how can you make me feel used and abused? How am I not going to get angry? I've just spent all that money on a motorcycle for your family, trying to be nice, and in return you treat me worse than you treated me the first night I met you. Then she gets more angry. And then she came up with an excuse explaining to her family that I'd been bitten by a scorpion, and I was shouting in pain and I was angry at that. So everyone starts laughing at the Farang who's been bitten by a scorpion, but that wasn't actually true. She just really disrespected me, and I'm still doubling down though, spending more money on this, thinking that eventually she'll put 2 and 2 together and understand that what she's doing is completely wrong. Then we go back to Pattaya a few days later, and go to see my friend, and I'm talking about things with him. And he started to listen, and instead of having that "I told you so" attitude that he had before, he's just saying to me, well, you could just divorce her and get it over with and start doing things properly. I could have done that. But then I'd be looking at what I've lost and what I've already spent. That resort, I spend a load of money on the phone, the bag, the motorcycle, other little gifts that I haven't even mentioned, which probably totaled 100,000 baht, on top of the 20,000 allowance that she was getting, all because I wanted her to be the girl I met. They say that you can take the girl out of the bar, but you can't take the bar out of the girl. I didn't want to take the bar out of the girl, I just wanted her to remain a bar girl with one customer, but with a little bit more respect and affection. A show of love is fine, I'm not even after real love here, I'm just after an equal exchange of value. Yet the value she provided when she didn't know me was so much better than the value she provided when she did know me. The value I provided when I met her was so tiny, yet the value I provided after I knew her was so much more. It made no sense to me. I was still hoping that we could push through and prove my friend wrong. So I thought perhaps I needed to talk to my wife properly and get her to explain to me why she was behaving so much worse than she behaved when we met, even though I'm giving her so much more. Why is she disrespecting me? Why does she think that she's got the right to do this? I took her out that evening, to her favourite place. She always liked to get an expensive bottle of wine at a restaurant, not for taste, of course, just so she could say and she's been there and take a picture of it, to show people that she's been drinking wine. I never got that. But it seemed that many places we went to, she wouldn't have bothered going if she couldn't have taken a picture of it. It was like the only reason she wanted to go. Showing off in Thailand and the face situation is perverse, really, but you accept it for what it is and get on with it. So she's swirling the wine around and smelling it like she knows exactly what she's doing. We order a nice cheese board and a few main dishes, and I delicately bring up my displeasure about how she's seemingly oblivious to the fact that I fell in love with. Again, not love in the actual sense of love and smitten type of love, but it was her and who she was when I met her that I wanted. And I referenced the fact that when we were in Phuket again, and I kept talking about it with her in Phuket, I referenced the fact that I happily supported her with 10,000 baht. I referenced the fact that about how she behaved during that time, how I never had to be concerned, I never had to be worried. She was hiding her feelings very well when she might have been upset about something. Why can't you just do like that now because I'm giving you so much more? Again, she said, "I your wife." Yes, you're my wife. Shouldn't the wife do better to her husband? And then she starts to get angry when I said that, like, why you talk like that to me? All I'm saying is that I want that back. I want you back the way you were. Sometimes I tired. Okay, so when you were working in a bar, if you were tired, would you not work there that night? No. I did raise my voice and I said that to her, and I do regret it, because she got upset, and then I said, okay, I'll buy you the nicest bottle of wine in here after we finish this one, and then she calmed down because she wanted pictures of it. So it appeared that I would just still need to persevere with the marriage and hope for the best. But I am starting to get very angry with Thailand, because I feel like what I've actually been presented with is not reality. It's an illusion, and I'm starting to regret going to Thailand, wondering if I should go somewhere else instead. I'm still holding on to the belief, though, that my wife will pull her finger out and actually put her back into it and start respecting me. I think she could understand that I was a bit upset, but if I actually put my mind to it, I don't think she understood what I was even trying to say. According to her, we were just husband and wife. What she did before had no bearing on that. But to me, we were husband and wife, and what she did before was 100% the reason for me doing anything. I wouldn't have expected a wife that I met and fell in love with of a similar age who brought money to the table, who did everything like I did. I wouldn't have expected her to be at my every beck and call. But if I met a girl whose job it was to be at someone's every beck and call, I would expect her to continue to do that, and I'm happy to give you more and be nicer and kinder and generous. But in return, you've got to, give me more too. I don't think she even understood, but she did promise that she would try harder. It was around this time she started talking about wanting to do something to make more money for herself. I want to make money, she said. But you don't need to make money because you get money from me. And then she said, well, I don't want to ask you for money. It's like, well, why did you meet me then? But she started coming up with different ideas she had, and there was no way I was going to invest in any kind of business. I was of the understanding that if she had any kind of business sense, she probably would have been able to do that herself and worked it out, no excuses. Not having money shouldn't be an excuse. It's only really an excuse because many people actually come from places like she did and don't end up in a brothel in Pattaya. But she did say that she would be interested in going to university to better herself, and then maybe she could get a job after that. She'd already finished high school, but that was her most education. And while I had never been to university and I never really valued higher education, unless you want to work in a very specific profession like a doctor, I asked her, to give me more information about it. And I did end up agreeing to pay for her to go to university. It needed to be paid every term, and there were some enrollment fees and other fees to start with. A private university. I didn't know much about it apart from seeing the fee list, and I agreed to pay 150,000 baht to start with, and then I would pay the installments for the next 3 years, and I was happy to do that. Of course, I was hoping for something in return, but the fact that literally only 2 weeks after starting, she quit, saying that she didn't like it. Headache, she said. I headache. I listen teacher, I headache, I no can do. The fact I just spent 150,000 for that, she hadn't changed herself because of this extra money, and she quit, and I've lost that money. Didn't matter to her, at all, and I'm thinking that 150,000 baht, I could have gone to a reasonable resort with a different girl maybe 5 times, who would have given me better, given me more of what I wanted. What my wife was meant to be giving me, like she used to do, but she's not, and again, more wasted money. My marriage with her lasted for another 8 months after this university thing. I was just throwing more money into it, money after money after money. I'm doubling down, I'm trying my absolute best to make her happy so that she can be the girl that I met, because that's all I want her to be. I guess after the university, I probably lost a total of another 600,000 baht on everything that I gave to her, on top of her 22,000 a month allowance. And I guess that was in total, nearly 40,000 pounds in total I lost over just a year, being married to someone who I had a better time with for the equivalent of a cheap steak dinner the first night I met her. How did I lose about 40,000 baht having a worse time with someone? I couldn't understand it, and I started to really hate the fact that I went to Thailand in the first place. I'm still regularly seeing my friend, and he's looking at me every time we meet like, I tried to tell you. He's not saying it anymore because he knows that I'm quite hurt about it. But he had the right idea all along, because he just understood that while you can take the girl out of a bar, you can't take the bar out of the girl in the sense that she will always want to be given things. She will always want that money for being a girl, for being like that. But complacency and comfort set in, and you might marry someone and think you're doing nicer to them, you're giving more to them, but in return, you're getting less. You might not be able to compute it, because I still can't compute it. But I really felt like I had it with Thailand altogether, because I didn't want to be someone who had many different relationships with many different people. Although, if I'd done that, I'd have spent less money and had a better time and no stress. So my advice, which is probably not going to be taken on board by anybody. Oh, and yes, I had to give her 200,000 baht when we got divorced. I didn't need to, and I shouldn't have done really, but she wouldn't have agreed otherwise. I suppose I shouldn't have done, because I wasn't staying there anyway, and it would have been harder for her if I didn't. But anyway, I did. So that was more money on top that I lost. But what I would say is that I had nothing against girls that work in the bars. I have nothing against the guys that go to the bars. I have nothing against anybody that does anything if that is what they want to do when they're not doing so under duress. But what I do have something against is a girl that works in a bar, who behaves in a particular way, who does certain things, who receives a certain amount of financial support in return for certain things, who will go with you when she doesn't know you to a resort and behave exactly like you want her to, even though you don't have to ask her to do that. I'm not telling her to walk around the hotel room and go outside to the private pool without her clothes on, but she's doing that anyway, kind of like what I want. And when we were together after that 3 months, it was everything I thought it was, because she was that person. And then we got married, and she was still that person. But in return for every single extra thing I was giving her over and above her allowance, and that was quite a considerable amount of extra things I gave her, I didn't get anything extra. What I got was less and worse in every single way. Don't get in a serious relationship with a girl that works in a bar, because if you want her to be that person with you, she will only be that person with you if the relationship isn't serious. Because if it's serious, she will get complacent. She will get comfortable, and she will feel emboldened to be a worse version of herself, for the person who wanted to make her be the best version of herself, for the person who wanted to take her out of that life. Not to save her from it, but to save her from ever having to work again. I wanted to elevate her status. I wanted to be able to take her out and drink expensive bottles of wine. I wanted to be able to buy her a new bag and a new phone and respect her family by buying them a new motorcycle and every other thing I did for her. But in return, surely if the base was the week I spent with her in Phuket, considering what that was when we were there, if she gets something to a value 10 times that, she should spend her time thinking how she can improve to 10x what she did in Phuket. But instead she's not. She reduces everything, ebbing away at my patience and my respect and my kindness to the point where I'd had enough of Thailand, and it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I didn't lose all my money, which I was thankful for, but I lost my belief that I found a country where finally things were straightforward. I didn't expect to be loved unconditionally. I didn't expect to have someone who was half my age actually care about me other than a little bit of respect given to me and don't cheat on me, which granted she never did cheat on me because I spent every single night with her when we were together and most of the days, and I know she didn't cheat on me. But I lost my belief in the idea that I had about Thailand to the point where I'd had enough and I hated Thailand. Now though, I had about 250 grand left. Fortunate that I had the bulk of my money remaining, but I decided just to go back home and accept the single life and think about, going somewhere else again in the future. I never went anywhere. I became a guy who knew that I could never have what I wanted, so I thought there was no point even trying.